Imagine looking up at the sky, right, during a massive thunderstorm, and instead of water droplets, golden retrievers and tabby cats are just plummeting onto your windshield.
Oh, terrifying.
Right. Or imagine you want to wish your best friend good luck on this huge presentation at work, so you look them dead in the eye, smile, and tell them to, like, physically fracture their femur.
Yeah, that doesn't sound supportive at all.
Not at all. But welcome to ESL listening practice. Today, we're skipping the generic vocabulary lists and those really rigid grammar drills.
There we are.
Because our mission today is entirely focused on the weird, the wild, and just the incredibly colorful world of English idioms.
Exactly. And to you, the listener, our intermediate B2 level English learner, I really want to frame this conversation around a very specific goal. We're looking at what is basically the ultimate shortcut to sounding like a native speaker. We're building that bridge between sounding like a rigid textbook, and sounding like a real person having a dynamic conversation. Because if you take the phrases we're discussing today and you just translate them word for word into your native language, you are going to sound completely insane.
Oh, yeah. Like, absolute nonsense. You'd sound like you're talking about animal cruelty or severe bodily harm or just, I don't know, dropping your groceries on the floor.
Exactly.
Which is why we aren't just giving you a list of definitions. I mean, anyone can look up a definition online. We're going to unpack the history behind these phrases, the really bizarre psychology of why English speakers use them, and the exact nuanced situations where you should, and honestly, absolutely should not, drop them into a conversation.
Right, because that is the true marker of fluency. It's not just knowing the vocabulary, it's understanding the cultural baggage that comes with the vocabulary.
Yeah.
Native speakers throw these phrases around constantly, and they're entirely blind to how absurd they sound to someone who, didn't grow up hearing them.
Well, let's start with an area where, like, British and American speakers generate a massive amount of their small talk, and that's the weather.
Oh, of course.
We just have this strange obsession with atmospheric conditions, and that physical weather often bleeds over into how we describe things. So take the phrase, raining cats and dogs.
Right, raining cats and dogs. It is an absolute staple of the English language. When someone says it's raining cats and dogs, they just mean it is raining very heavily, a torrential, unavoidable downpour.
Yeah.
You might look out the window and say, well, I'm not walking to the train station. It's raining cats and dogs.
Okay, I have to stop you there, because I understand heavy rain. But why on earth cats and dogs?
It's weird, right?
It is. If I want to exaggerate, why wouldn't I say, I don't know, it's raining elephants or raining bricks? Where do domestic pets enter the meteorological conversation?
Well, it's a fascinating question, and the origin is actually heavily debated among linguists.
Right.
But there are two prevailing theories that really perfectly illustrate how strange language history is.
Okay, lay them on me.
So the first takes us all the way back to Norse mythology. Odin, the god of storms, he was often depicted with wolves and dogs, which represented the wind.
Okay, dogs are wind. Got it.
Right. And meanwhile, in European folklore, witches were heavily associated with cats. And it was believed that witches rode the storms and caused heavy rain. So if a storm was particularly violent, you had the wind, which were the dogs, and the rain, the cats.
Wait. So when a modern office worker says it's raining cats and dogs, they are unknowingly referencing Viking storm gods and 16th century witchcraft.
Quite possibly. I mean, that's one theory.
That's wild.
But there is a second theory, and I should warn you, it is significantly less magical and much more disgusting.
Oh, no. Okay, let's hear it.
We have to go back to 17th century London. So the streets were incredibly narrow, the sanitation was practically non-existent, and the drainage systems were literally just open trenches in the street.
Right, no modern plumbing.
Exactly. So when a massive torrential storm hit, the floodwaters would rush through these streets, carrying along all the debris. Unfortunately, that debris often included the bodies of stray cats and dogs that, had not survived the harsh city conditions.
Oh, wow. That is incredibly grim.
It really is. The satirist Jonathan Swift even wrote a famous poem in 1710 describing a city shower, and he specifically mentioned dead cats and dogs being washed down the streets.
Yikes.
So when it rained heavily enough to flood the drainage trenches, people would literally see cats and dogs in the rushing rainwater.
So it was just a literal description of the aftermath of a flood.
Pretty much.
That actually makes the phrase so much darker, but also, entirely unforgettable. But let's look at the modern context for our listener. If the history is that grim, does the phrase sound, outdated or morbid today?
Oh, not at all. That history has been completely washed away, no pun intended. Today, it's a very lighthearted, common, conversational phrase. It just brings a bit of animated color to a boring observation about the weather. Let's do a quick situational role play just to show how natural this sounds.
Oh, wait, let's do it.
Imagine we're coworkers standing by the office window and it is just pouring outside.
All right, so I'm holding my coffee. I'm looking out at the flooded parking lot. I'd probably sigh and say, wow, look at that. I was going to walk to the deli to get a sandwich for lunch, but it is really raining cats and dogs out there. Maybe we should just pool our money and order delivery.
And I would respond, yeah, absolutely. I'm not stepping out in that. It's raining cats and dogs. My shoes would be ruined in 2 seconds.
Right.
Notice the tone there. It flows perfectly. It doesn't sound dramatic. And it certainly doesn't sound like we're talking about Norse mythology or, 17th century sanitation.
It's definitely not. It just sounds like a natural, accepted exaggeration in everyday speech. It paints a chaotic picture, but a really safe one. But that physical, heavy weather outside is just one part of the equation, right? What happens when the weather moves from the outside world into someone's internal mental state?
Ooh, that's a good transition.
We have a phrase for that too, and it describes a very specific type of distraction.
Yeah.
Having your head in the clouds.
Yes, this represents a major shift from the physical to the psychological. If someone says you have your head in the clouds, they mean you're not paying attention to the reality around you.
You're daydreaming.
Exactly. You are physically sitting in a chair, but mentally you are miles away, floating somewhere in the stratosphere.
I hear this used in a professional context a lot, usually as a sort of, polite criticism. Like, he's a nice guy, but he always has his head in the clouds during our budget meetings.
Right.
It's a softer way of saying the person is completely ignoring the spreadsheet. But I have to ask, is this always an insult? What if I'm like a creative director? Doesn't having my head in the clouds mean I'm an innovator?
That is a very perceptive question. It's not always an outright insult, but it almost always implies a lack of grounding in practical reality. If you're an artist or a poet, having your head in the clouds might be exactly where you find your inspiration. But in most daily interactions, driving a car, listening to a teacher, doing your taxes.
Please pay attention while driving.
Right. Society demands that you pay attention to the dirt beneath your feet, not the sky above. So if a teacher tells a parent your son has his head in the clouds, they aren't praising his imagination. They're warning the parent that he isn't learning his algebra.
That makes a lot of sense. It's a disconnect from the present moment. Now, before we move on, I really want to talk about the grammar here, because I think a B2 learner could make a tiny mistake with this phrase that would completely change the meaning in the modern world.
Oh, absolutely.
The phrase is head in the clouds, plural, with an S.
That is a vital observation. Listeners, pay very close attention to this. You must use the plural form, clouds.
Yeah.
If you drop the S and say, my head is in the cloud, you have suddenly stopped talking about daydreaming and started talking about digital data storage.
Right. If a learner walks into their office and says to their American boss, sorry, I missed that email, my head is in the cloud today, the boss is going to think they're talking about Amazon Web Services or Apple iCloud.
They will think you are downloading your consciousness to a server farm.
Exactly.
The singular phrase, the cloud, has been entirely hijacked by the technology sector over the last 15 years. It almost exclusively refers to the internet servers where we store our photos and documents.
Yeah, that's so true.
So to capture the idiom about being a romantic daydreamer, the pluralization is non-negotiable. You need clouds. Multiple, fluffy, white masses of water vapor floating in the sky.
Clouds, plural, gives us that airy, dreamy, disconnected feeling. The cloud singular gives us a monthly subscription fee for extra gigabytes.
Well said.
It really highlights how fast language evolves.
It does. And speaking of how the weather affects us, we need to talk about how the environment directly impacts our physical health.
Okay.
This brings us to a phrase that is arguably the most useful tool in a B2 learner's professional toolkit: feeling under the weather.
Feeling under the weather. This means feeling sick. But I want to really dig into the parameters of this sickness.
Good idea.
Because if I'm chopping vegetables in the kitchen and I accidentally cut my finger off and blood is everywhere, I am not going to call an ambulance and say, please hurry, I am feeling incredibly under the weather.
I sincerely hope not. The paramedics would be very confused when they arrived.
Right.
The nuance here is crucial for our listeners. Under the weather does not just mean sick. It specifically implies a mild illness.
Okay, mild illness.
It is reserved for a common cold, a lingering headache, seasonal allergies, or perhaps a slightly upset stomach. It is absolutely never used for a severe medical emergency, a broken bone, or a chronic disease.
So where does this come from? Why does feeling a bit tired and sniffly equate to being beneath the atmospheric conditions?
Like so many idioms in the English language, this one comes from our maritime history.
Sailors.
Exactly. Hundreds of years ago, when sailors were out on the open ocean, the weather dictated everything about their survival. When a heavy storm hit, the winds and the waves would batter the front of the ship, which was called the weather bow.
The weather bow.
Right. If a sailor began to feel seasick from the violent motion, or if they caught a chill from the freezing rain, the captain would order them to go below deck.
So they literally went under the deck to get away from the weather.
Exactly. They were sent below the weather bow to recover. They were literally under the weather.
That's so literal.
Over the centuries, ships became modernized, but the phrase stuck around to describe anyone who was feeling mildly ill and needed to retreat to their bed to recover.
That is a brilliant visual. The sailor climbing down the wooden ladder into the dark hole of the ship just to escape the rain. And it perfectly translates to modern corporate life.
It really does.
When you're feeling mildly ill today, you want to retreat to your bed and escape your emails. But I want to talk about why this specific phrase is so important for an English learner working in an English-speaking country.
It comes down to the cultural etiquette of sickness in Western professional environments.
Right.
In many English-speaking corporate cultures, there is a very strict unspoken rule about privacy regarding bodily functions. If you need to cancel a meeting or take a sick day, your colleagues do not want to hear the graphic medical details of your illness.
They really, really don't. If you wake up with a terrible stomach bug, you should never email your team and say, hi everyone, I cannot come to the office today because my digestive system is violently rejecting everything I ate last night and I cannot leave the bathroom.
No, that would be a massive overshare.
Too much information.
It would make everyone in the office so uncomfortable. And yet if you just say, I am sick, it sometimes sounds a bit abrupt or lacks professional polish.
Yeah, it's a bit blunt.
So, under the weather is the perfect diplomatic middle ground. It is the ultimate polite excuse.
It's almost like a shield. You send an email saying, hi team, I'm going to take a sick day today as I'm feeling a bit under the weather. I'll check my emails periodically. It signals that you are unwell, but it firmly closes the door on any follow-up questions about your symptoms.
Precisely. It's professional, it's accepted without question, and it maintains your privacy. It is a phrase that every B2 learner should memorize immediately if they're working internationally.
So we've navigated the heavy storms of raining cats and dogs, we've brought our heads out of the clouds, and we've gone below deck when we feel under the weather.
We've covered a lot of weather.
We have. But what happens when the feeling inside your body isn't a mild cold? What happens when you are suddenly struck with absolute terror?
Ooh, a big shift.
Yeah, because that physical heaviness of a bad storm actually mirrors how our bodies react to sudden, extreme stress. Let's talk about the phrase, my heart was in my mouth.
This is a vivid leap from feeling mildly sick to experiencing an overwhelming, acute physical sensation. When someone says their heart was in their mouth, they mean they were feeling extremely nervous, terrified, or shocked.
Okay.
It is an intense spike of anxiety.
I love the biological accuracy of this phrase, even though it sounds anatomically impossible. But we've all felt this. I want the listener to picture being on a massive, terrifying roller coaster.
Oh, I hate roller coasters.
Well, imagine you slowly click, click, click up the track to the very highest peak. The car pauses for a second, you look over the edge at the drop, and then suddenly gravity takes over and you plunge downward.
My palms are sweating just thinking about it.
In that exact fraction of a second, your body experiences a severe fight-or-flight response. Your stomach drops, your adrenaline spikes, and your pulse pounds so hard in your neck and throat that it physically feels like your heart has traveled up your esophagus and is sitting right behind your teeth.
It is the vagus nerve reacting to sudden fear. It is a physiological reality translated into a metaphor. And because it describes such an extreme physical reaction, we have to be careful about when we use it.
Right.
You would not use this idiom for mild worry.
Right. If I'm at the grocery store and I can't find my favorite brand of peanut butter, I'm not going to turn to my wife and say, oh my gosh, my heart is in my mouth.
No, that would make you sound incredibly dramatic.
Exactly.
This idiom is reserved for high-stakes, adrenaline-fueled moments. It is for the moment you lose control of your car on an icy road and spin out. The car swerved into oncoming traffic and my heart was in my mouth.
Oh, absolutely.
Or For our B2 learners, it might be the moment right before a massive life-changing event.
Like sitting in the waiting room right before you're called in to take your final English proficiency speaking exam.
Yes.
Your palms are sweating, you're reviewing vocabulary in your head, the examiner calls your name, and boom, your heart is in your mouth.
Exactly. But I want to contrast this with another common English idiom about fear to really highlight the nuance. How does heart in my mouth differ from having butterflies in your stomach?
Oh, that's a great comparison. If I have butterflies in my stomach, I'm nervous, but there's usually a sense of anticipation or even excitement.
Right.
Like right before you go on a first date or right before you step on stage to give a speech. It's a fluttering, restless feeling.
Correct. Butterflies in the stomach is a lower level, sustained nervousness. Having your heart in your mouth is sheer terror.
Sheer terror.
It is the acute realization of immediate danger or catastrophic stakes. It's the difference between worrying about a test and realizing you forgot to study for it at all as the paper is handed to you.
That is a perfect distinction. And when your heart is literally blocking your throat, when you are in that state of sheer terror, it is pretty hard to speak.
It is.
The fear paralyzes your vocal cords. And that sudden silence leads us to one of the most uniquely strange idioms in the English language. A phrase used to demand an answer from someone who refuses to speak. Cat got your tongue.
This phrase is almost entirely used as a direct question. If you are talking to someone and they're unnervingly quiet or refusing to answer a question, you look at them and say, "What's the matter?" Cat got your tongue.
Right.
Meaning simply, why aren't you speaking?
Before we dig into the history, and I know the history of this one is dark, we have to perform some linguistic triage. We need a spelling and pronunciation clinic right now.
We really do.
Because the word tongue is an absolute nightmare for English learners. It looks like it was spelled by someone who just threw a handful of random alphabet soup at a wall.
It truly is a testament to how unphonetic English can be. Listeners, please visualize this word. The correct spelling is Tongue. I will spell that again. Tongue.
I see so many learners online, and honestly, even native speakers on social media accidentally spell it Tongue because their thumbs slip on the keyboard or they think there's a V sound in there somewhere. There is no V.
None. And the pronunciation is just as baffling as the spelling. If you try to sound it out phonetically based on the letters, you might say tunju or tungui.
Tongui. That sounds so wrong.
It does. To pronounce it correctly, you have to completely ignore the last three letters. The U and the E are entirely silent. They are historical ghosts taking up space on the page.
They do absolutely nothing. They're freeloaders.
Exactly. Focus only on the first four letters. The O does not make an A or O sound. It makes a short U sound, what linguists call a schwa. It sounds like So the T and the O make tun.
Ka.
Then the N and the G combine to make a nasal sound in the very back of your throat. N.
Egg.
Put it together. Tun. Tun. One single solid syllable.
Tongue. Okay, so the phrase is, cat got your tongue. Now let's look at the why. Why are we accusing a domestic feline of stealing a muscular organ from our mouths? We talked about cats falling from the sky earlier, but this feels much more violent.
It is significantly more violent. Like the weather idioms, the origins of this phrase are heavily debated, but the two leading theories are deeply rooted in punishment.
Oh boy.
The first takes us back to the British Royal Navy. In the 18th and 19th centuries, severe infractions by sailors were punished by flogging. The whip they used was a terrifying instrument made of 9 knotted leather cords, and it was called the cat o' nine tails.
Because the whip would leave scratches on the sailor's back like the claws of a cat?
Precisely. The pain of being flogged by the cat o' nine tails was so excruciating that the sailor receiving the punishment would be completely paralyzed by agony. They would be incapable of crying out or speaking.
Wow.
The pain was so intense it effectively stole their voice. Thus, the cat got their tongue.
That is horrific. But honestly, it makes total sense given the intensity of the silence it describes. You mentioned a second theory.
The second theory goes back even further, to ancient Egypt. In some periods of ancient Middle Eastern and Egyptian history, a punishment for severe crimes, like blasphemy or treason, was the literal removal of the offender's tongue.
No way.
And according to legend, those severed tongues were then fed to cats, which were highly revered animals in Egyptian culture.
Okay, I take it back. That is even worse than the Navy whip.
It's pretty brutal.
So, historically, this phrase is born out of agonizing torture and mutilation. But obviously, when a modern English speaker uses it, they aren't threatening to flog someone. What is the modern tone of this idiom?
The modern tone is highly informal, often teasing, and sometimes slightly aggressive. The violence of its history has faded, but the power dynamic remains.
A power dynamic.
Yeah. When you ask someone, "Cat got your tone," you are asserting dominance. You're challenging them. You are saying, "I know you are too scared or too embarrassed to answer me."
So, if I am a B2 learner working in a corporate office, and I'm in a tense board meeting, and the CEO suddenly goes quiet while looking at a bad quarterly report, I should absolutely not lean across the table and say, "Excuse me, sir, cat got your tongue."
If you do that, you might as well pack up your desk right then and there.
Goodbye, job.
Yes. It is massively disrespectful to use this with a superior. You're essentially treating the CEO like a naughty child.
Because adults often use this with children, right?
Constantly. Imagine a parent walks into the kitchen and sees their 5-year-old child standing next to a broken cookie jar. The child's face is covered in chocolate. The parent asks, "Did you break this?"
And the kid is just frozen.
Right. The child, terrified of being punished, just stares in wide-eyed silence. Their heart is in their mouth. The parent folds their arms and says, "Well, cat got you done."
It's a provocation. It's teasing the silence out of them. So the golden rule for our listener: use this phrase when joking with close friends or when you are affectionately teasing a child. Keep it completely out of the boardroom, keep it away from strangers, and never use it with someone who has authority over you.
It's a good general rule that if an idiom involves an animal violently interacting with a body part, keep it strictly casual.
I'm going to write that rule down. No animal body part idioms during salary negotiations.
Good call.
But eventually, that silence has to break. Whether it's the child with the cookie jar or a friend hiding a juicy piece of gossip, the silence cannot last forever. They have to confess. They have to reveal the truth.
They do.
And that brings us to our next concept: the messy reality of revealing secrets, or as we call it, spilling the beans.
To spill the beans simply means to reveal a secret or to disclose hidden information, often prematurely or accidentally.
Okay.
If someone is planning a surprise birthday party and a friend accidentally mentions it to the birthday boy, you would say, "Oh no, he spilled the beans about the party."
I want to spend a minute on the sheer visual perfection of this metaphor. Listeners, close your eyes and picture this. You are standing in a pristine kitchen with a beautifully clean, white-tiled floor. In your hands, you are holding a massive, heavy ceramic bowl filled to the very top with hot, messy baked beans covered in thick red tomato sauce.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Suddenly, the bowl slips from your grip.
A disaster.
An absolute disaster. The bowl hits the floor and shatters. The beans explode everywhere. They splatter against the white cabinets. They roll underneath the refrigerator. The red sauce seeps into the white grout between the tiles. It is an unmitigated mess.
The huge mess.
But here's the crucial part of the metaphor. Try putting those beans back into the bowl.
You can't.
Yeah.
It is physically impossible. The mess is made, the beans are dirty, the situation is irreversibly changed.
Exactly. And that is the exact psychological reality of revealing a massive secret. Before you tell the secret, the information is contained safely in your mind, just like the beans in the bowl. But the moment you open your mouth and let the words out, the secret splatters into the world. People react, feelings get hurt, rumors spread. And just like the beans on the floor, you cannot untell a secret. You can apologize, you can try to clean it up, but you can never put that information back into the safety of your own head.
That is a phenomenal way to understand the irreversible nature of the phrase.
Yeah.
But, as with everything we discuss, the historical origin is completely different from the modern visual we just created.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The origin of spilling the beans doesn't come from a messy kitchen. It comes from the foundation of democracy in ancient Greece.
Wait, really? The Greeks were voting with legumes?
They were. In ancient Greek secret societies and in certain political elections, voting was conducted anonymously using beans. A jar or a helmet would be passed around, and members would place a white bean inside to indicate a yes vote or a black bean to indicate a no vote.
Wow, okay.
Because the voting was secret, the contents of the jar were highly guarded until all votes were cast.
I think I see where this is going.
Yes. If someone was clumsy or perhaps intentionally trying to sabotage the vote, they might knock the jar over. The jar would fall, the beans would spill onto the floor, and the secret tally, the ratio of white beans to black beans, would be prematurely revealed to everyone in the room.
The secret was out.
They had literally spilled the beans.
That is incredible. A 2,500-year-old democratic voting mechanism has survived as a phrase we use to gossip about our coworkers' dating lives. How do native speakers primarily use this phrase today?
Today, It is almost entirely used as a playful demand for gossip. It implies that the secret is something people are eager to know rather than, a matter of state security. It's an active request among friends to make the mess.
Right, let's role play that. Imagine we have a mutual friend, let's call him David, and we know David went on a highly anticipated blind date last night.
Perfect. I would call you the next morning and say, okay, I saw David's car parked outside that fancy Italian restaurant last night. I know the day happened. Have you talked to him? You have to spill the beans. How did it go?
And I would reply, oh, I'll spill the beans, all right. It was a total disaster. His date spent the entire dinner talking about their pet iguana.
Right.
It's light, it's fun, it's conversational. You are begging for the information.
But sometimes releasing information isn't fun gossip. Sometimes the secret you're holding is a terrible mistake you made. You know that spilling the beans is going to result in anger or punishment.
Yeah, that's the flip side.
But the anxiety of holding the secret becomes worse than the fear of the consequences. You just have to force yourself to endure the pain and confess. Which brings us to a phrase about doing the difficult, painful things we have been avoiding. Bite the bullet.
To bite the bullet means to force yourself to do something incredibly difficult, unpleasant, or painful. It's an act of sheer willpower and resignation. The example we often hear is, I hated my job, but I finally bit the bullet and quit.
To understand the profound weight of this phrase, we have to look at the history of battlefield medicine.
Oh boy, here we go.
We have to go back to the mid-19th century, to conflicts like the Crimean War or the American Civil War, before the widespread use of surgical anesthesia like ether or chloroform.
This is going to be another gruesome one, isn't it?
Very. Imagine a soldier whose leg has been shattered by a cannonball. The field surgeon needs to amputate the leg to save the soldier's life. But there is no pain medication.
No, not at all.
To keep the soldier from screaming and biting through his own tongue in agony during the surgery, the surgeon would hand the soldier a soft lead bullet and tell him to bite down on it as hard as he could.
So the bullet literally absorbed the physical manifestation of the soldier's agony. He was embracing the pain to survive.
Exactly. Biting the bullet was the ultimate act of accepting inevitable excruciating pain because there was no other alternative. You couldn't escape this surgery, so you just had to brace yourself and endure it.
It is such a heavy, visceral origin. And it translates perfectly to modern life, albeit with much lower stakes. Today, we don't bite bullets for amputations. We bite the bullet when we have to pay a massive tax bill that we've been putting off.
Or when we have to break up with someone we care about, but know it isn't working out.
Exactly. You don't want to do it. You know it's going to hurt, but it simply must be done.
It's about courage and resignation. Now, from a linguistic perspective, this phrase presents a specific challenge for our B2 learners, and we need to spend a moment on a grammar clinic.
A grammar clinic. Let's do it.
The verb bite is an irregular verb, and English learners often struggle with the correct conjugation of irregulars, especially when telling stories about the past.
This is so true. Using the wrong tense of an irregular verb is like a neon sign flashing, I am not a native speaker.
It really is. So let's break down the timeline of biting the bullet. If you are talking about the present moment or a future necessity, you use the base form. Bite. B-I-T-E.
Like my car engine is making a terrible noise. I need to bite the bullet and take it to the mechanic today.
Exactly. But what if you finally went to the mechanic yesterday? You can't say, I bited the bullet.
I bited the bullet. That sounds like a toddler learning to speak.
Absolutely do not say bited. The past tense of bite is bit. B-I-T. Is a sharp, quick sound. I was dreading the cost, but yesterday I finally bit the bullet and took my car in.
And what if we were using the present perfect tense, like reflecting on an achievement over time?
Then you need the past participle, which is bitten. B-I-T-T-E-N. After months of ignoring my toothache, I have finally bitten the bullet and scheduled a dentist appointment.
Bite, bit, bitten. It is crucial to drill those three forms: present pain, past pain, and completed pain.
Exactly. And once you endure that pain, once you have bitten the bullet, done the hard work, had the difficult conversation, or paid the massive bill, you eventually get to the other side.
Right, the relief.
You get to the results, the outcomes, and hopefully the praise, which represents a massive tonal shift in our conversation today. We are moving from the anxiety and the pain to the celebration of success.
Yes, let's look at the absolute best outcome after someone has helped you through a difficult situation. This is a phrase that sounds like geology, but it's actually about immense gratitude. Idiom number 8, you rock.
You rock. The meaning is wonderfully simple. You are amazing, or you did a fantastic job.
Right.
If a colleague stays late to help you finish a project, you might say, "Thanks for staying, you rock."
I love this phrase. It is so short, so punchy, but it carries so much positive weight. When I first heard this years ago, I thought it was just slang for musicians. Like, you play rock and roll music. But it goes much deeper than that, doesn't it?
It does. Well, it certainly gained immense popularity in the latter half of the 20th century alongside rock music. The linguistic root of the compliment actually connects to the physical properties of a literal rock or stone.
Oh, interesting.
Think about what a rock represents. It is solid. It is dependable. It provides a firm foundation that doesn't collapse under pressure.
Ah, like the biblical phrase, building your house upon a rock. It means stability.
Precisely. When you tell someone you rock, you aren't just saying they are cool. You are saying they are solid, dependable, and a foundational support in your life or your work. They are a rock you can lean on.
That gives it so much more meaning. And I really want to emphasize to our B2 listener why this specific phrase is a superpower for their daily English usage.
Definitely.
When you're learning a language, you inevitably fall into a trap of relying on safe, repetitive, slightly robotic phrasing. When someone does something nice for you, you probably say, "You are very good. Thank you very much. That is very kind of you."
And while those phrases are perfectly polite, using them constantly can make you sound a bit stiff. It creates a slight emotional distance. If your coworker covers your shift at the last minute because your child is sick, sending them an email that says, "You are a very good person, thank you," sounds almost clinical.
It sounds like an AI generated a thank you note. But if you text them, "Thank you so much for covering my shift, you rock," it instantly changes the dynamic.
Completely.
It is casual, highly supportive, enthusiastic, and culturally fluent. It collapses the distance between you and the other person.
It brings a warmth to the interaction. Native speakers use "you rock" for everything from someone holding the elevator door open to a friend helping them move furniture all weekend. It is universally understood positive reinforcement.
So we use "you rock" after someone has successfully completed a task. But what do we say before they attempt the task? How do we wish someone success in the English language?
Well, we do it in the most psychologically confusing, seemingly violent way possible.
Naturally. Let's talk about the phrase "break a leg."
This is the pinnacle of English irony. The core meaning of "break a leg" is simply good luck. But it is specifically used before a performance. If your friend is starring in a local play, right before they walk on stage, you tell them, "Break a leg."
I have to play the role of the utterly bewildered language learner here. Let me get this straight. I care about my friend. I want them to succeed. I want the audience to applaud for them. And to express that loving, supportive sentiment, I look them in the eye and command them to shatter the largest bone in their lower body. I am wishing a catastrophic orthopedic injury upon them. Why on earth is this a socially acceptable thing to say?
It is completely bizarre, but to understand it, we have to pull back the curtain on the deeply superstitious world of the theater.
Okay? Theater people.
Historically, actors and stagehands were an incredibly superstitious group of people. They believed that theaters were inhabited by mischievous spirits, ghosts, or sprites.
Okay, theater ghosts. I'm with you so far.
These spirits were believed to be contrarian by nature. If you wished an actor good luck, the spirits would overhear you. Because they like to cause trouble, the spirits would intervene and intentionally cause the actor to have bad luck.
So they'd mess things up.
Yeah. The actor might forget their lines, trip on a prop, or the lighting rig might fail.
So wishing someone good luck actually guaranteed disaster.
Exactly. So to outsmart these theater ghosts, the actors developed a system of reverse psychology. If they wished each other the absolute worst possible luck, something terrible like breaking a leg, the spirits would be confused. The spirits would think, well, they already want a disaster, so I won't interfere. And as a result, the actor would go out and have a perfectly safe, successful, wonderful performance.
That is amazing. It is an elaborate psychological chess match with imaginary ghosts just to avoid saying the word luck. I've also heard a secondary theory about this relating to the physical action on stage. Something about the leg line.
Yes, that is a more practical, historical theory from the days of vaudeville theater. In those days, performers waited in the wings, just off stage. The line separating the backstage area from the visible stage was called the leg line.
The leg line.
Performers didn't get paid unless they actually crossed that line and performed for the audience. So telling a performer to break a leg was a slang way of saying, I hope you cross the leg line, get on stage, and get paid tonight.
That makes a lot of practical sense, too. Break the barrier of the leg line. But regardless of whether it's ghosts or vaudeville economics, we have to establish very strict boundaries for our listeners on how and when to use this phrase.
Yes, context is absolute king here. Because of its theatrical origins, break a leg is almost exclusively used before someone is about to perform in front of an audience or face a major high-pressure test.
Right.
You say it to an actor before a play. You say it to a musician before a concert. You can even say it to a friend before they give a massive keynote speech at a conference or before they walk into that B2 English exam we talked about earlier.
But, and this is a massive flashing neon warning sign, you absolutely cannot use this as a blanket substitute for good luck in physical or dangerous situations.
Never.
If your friend says, I'm going skiing in the Alps tomorrow, and you say break a leg, they will think you are cursing them. You are literally wishing a sports injury upon them.
Or even worse, if your elderly grandmother tells you she is going to the hospital for a hip replacement surgery tomorrow morning, and you smile and say, break a leg, Grandma.
Oh no, that's terrible.
She would be horrified. The doctors would be horrified. In a medical or physical context, the irony disappears completely, and it just sounds like a malicious threat.
Keep it to the stage, folks. Keep it strictly to performances. And speaking of things you absolutely should not say in a hospital, that brings us to our final idiom of the day.
Big one.
We are ending on the darkest, strangest, and potentially most dangerous phrase for a learner to misuse. It is a phrase about the ultimate end of life. Kick the bucket.
Kick the bucket. The definition is simply to die, to pass away. But that definition does not capture the tone, and the tone is everything.
Yeah, tone matters here.
It is a highly informal slang and deeply irreverent way of saying someone has died. For example, the old man who lived down the street finally kicked the bucket.
Before we explain where this comes from, we need to issue a severe warning. We talked about not telling your grandmother to break a leg. This is 10 times more sensitive.
Listeners, please hear me clearly. This phrase is strictly informal. It is not polite. It is not respectful. It is a colloquial, almost cartoonish way to refer to the profound tragedy of death.
Exactly.
You must never use this phrase when someone is actively grieving or in any formal setting where respect for the deceased is required.
To really drive this home, let's play out the worst-case scenario. Let's imagine a B2 learner wants to show off their new vocabulary. They are invited to a solemn, highly formal funeral for their company's CEO's father. The mood is heavy, everyone is wearing black suits, the music is somber, people are quietly weeping in the pews. Our well-meaning language learner walks up to the grieving CEO, shakes his hand with a deeply sad expression, and tries to offer condolences.
I'm bracing myself for the cringe.
The learner looks the CEO in the eye and softly says, "Sir, I'm so sorry for your loss. I heard your beloved father kicked the bucket yesterday."
It's physical pain just hearing that. That is the ultimate social faux pas.
It's so bad.
The CEO would be utterly insulted. The surrounding colleagues would gasp. You might literally lose your job over a linguistic error like that. It strips away all the dignity of the person's passing.
It makes it sound like a joke. So if the phrase is that dangerous, why do English speakers use it, and where did it come from? Why a bucket? Why not kick a chair or a door?
The history is surprisingly industrial and quite grim. The most widely accepted etymology doesn't refer to a bucket that holds water. It comes from an Old French word, bouquet, which referred to a heavy wooden beam or a yoke.
A wooden beam. How does that relate to dying?
It relates to slaughterhouses. In centuries past, when butchers were slaughtering pigs, they would tie the animal's back legs to this heavy wooden beam, the bouquet, and hoist the animal into the air.
Oh, wow.
When the butcher slit the animal's throat, the animal would inevitably have post-mortem muscle spasms. It would thrash its legs, and in doing so, it would literally kick the bouquet, the wooden beam it was tied to.
Wow. So kicking the bucket is a direct reference to the death spasms of livestock in a slaughterhouse. That is incredibly dark. Is there any other theory?
The other theory is equally dark, and it relates to suicide by hanging. The theory suggests that a person would stand on an overturned water bucket, tie a noose around their neck, and then kick the bucket away from under their own feet to end their life.
Okay, so whether it's slaughterhouses or tragic suicides, the origin is undeniably bleak, which makes it even more fascinating that modern society uses it in such a lighthearted, irreverent way. When is it safe for our listener to use this phrase?
You use it when the conversation is inherently lighthearted, when you are joking about your own mortality, or when you are referring to inanimate objects breaking down.
Inanimate objects? Like what?
For example, if you have an ancient, rusty washing machine that has been making terrible noises for years and it finally stops working completely, You can laugh and say, well, I guess the old washing machine finally kicked the bucket.
Oh, using it for machines is perfect. It completely removes the human tragedy element.
Yes. Or an older person might use it with dark humor about themselves. They might say, I really want to travel to Japan and see Tokyo before I kick the bucket. Which, by the way, is exactly where the massively popular modern phrase bucket list comes from.
A bucket list, the list of things you want to do before you kick the bucket. That is so ingrained in mainstream culture now. There are movies called The Bucket List. It's totally acceptable to say skydiving is on my bucket list. But kick the bucket itself remains edgy.
Exactly. Bucket list has been sanitized by pop culture. Kick the bucket retains its irreverence. Understanding this phrase perfectly demonstrates your B2 comprehension, but choosing exactly when and where to say it and avoiding the CEO's funeral demonstrates true native-level cultural fluency.
What a journey we have been on today. We have covered an immense amount of linguistic and historical ground. Let's do a quick conceptual recap of what we've unpacked.
Let's do it.
We started by looking at how the chaotic weather shapes our vocabulary, tracing heavy storms to Viking myths and flooded London streets to understand why it rains cats and dogs.
We learned the vital grammatical difference between having our head in the clouds, plural, as a daydreamer, versus uploading our brain to a tech company's cloud server.
Right.
And we explored the maritime history of retreating below the weather bow to politely excuse ourselves from work when we feel under the weather.
From the weather, we move to the physical reality of the human body, exploring the sheer adrenaline and vagus nerve response of having our heart in our mouth on a roller coaster. We learn the phonetic secrets of spelling TONGUE and the dark, violent history of the Royal Navy whip that causes a cat to get our tongue.
We discuss the irreversible mess of spilling the beans, tracing it all the way back to the anonymous voting jars of ancient Greek democracy. That led us to the battlefield surgeries of the 19th century, where soldiers had to literally bite the lead bullet to endure pain, teaching us the irregular conjugations of bite, bit, and bitten.
And finally, we ended with the outcomes. We learned how to offer bedrock, solid support by telling someone they rock. We navigated the treacherous reverse psychology of theater ghosts by wishing performers to break a leg, and we narrowly avoided a catastrophic HR disaster by learning exactly when not to joke about someone kicking the slaughterhouse bucket.
It is a remarkable testament to the complexity of English.
Yeah.
To our listener, I want to say this to validate the effort you are putting in. Mastering these 10 bizarre phrases, understanding their histories, and respecting their boundaries isn't just a vocabulary exercise. It is a profound cultural exercise.
So true.
When you use you rock instead of you are very good, or when you politely claim to be under the weather instead of detailing your stomach virus, you instantly elevate your English. You transition from sounding like someone who merely studies the language to someone who actually lives inside it.
It shows you understand the rhythm, the dark humor, and the unspoken rules of the culture. Now, before we sign off, I want to leave you with a final thought experiment. Next time you are sitting around having a normal conversation in your native language with your friends or your family, I want you to silently try literally translating some of these English idioms into your mother tongue in your head.
That is a brilliant exercise.
Just think about the literal words. Look at your friend in a cafe and imagine saying in your language, I was so scared my heart was in my mouth, but then I spilled the beans and now I hope he kicks the bucket. Notice how completely insane you would sound to your own friends. They would think you were having a breakdown.
They would be deeply concerned for your mental health.
They really would. But that is the absolute beauty of language acquisition. It is a great reminder that speaking a new language isn't just a mathematical equation where you swap one word for another. It's about adopting the weird, wonderful, and entirely unique cultural lens behind the words. Embrace the weirdness. Keep practicing these phrases. Keep your head out of the clouds when you are doing your grammar exercises, and we'll catch you next time on ESL Listening Practice.